We'll just give it a second before we start chatting because I know you guys are waiting for this awesome show tonight. Is that a second up, Glenn? Is that a second up?
Second up.
We got a second up.
Yeah.
Hey guys, welcome to tonight's show of Let's Talk About Ice live on the couch. We are on the Gold Coast. Yes, I know.
Yay.
Ben's here from Cobb. Say hello, Ben.
Hello everyone. Good to be up
I
here in
said
Cobb.
say hello, Ben.
Hello Ben.
They've come visiting, the Cox team have come visiting the Gold Coast team, so it's been a real blessing to have them here tonight.
Exactly.
And we do have a show and a half for you.
Yes.
So something different tonight. We're going to be doing something that we haven't done before. And we're going to have a double father and daughter team. That's why there's double trouble here. But you know that we have to go through the housework, and Ben's help me clean up today. So do you want to start the cleaning?
Okay, dokes. Okay, a few thank yous here. I want to thank Set Free and Cross Life Church.
Awesome.
Volunteering on Gold Coast for making us finalists in the Community Project of the Year.
Woohoo! So on the Streets program, guys. That's so exciting.
Yes, so that's for On the Streets program. So stay tuned for voting details. Follow volunteering on the Gold Coast and on Facebook.
Yeah. So you got to vote. That means you got to vote on
Make sure you do.
for us that we win the Community Project of the Year because they've nominated us, but it's up to you guys. You know, we do it on the streets where we go feeding people and we go give them coffees. You guys do it in the Coffs Harbour as well, but with an aim to help them step out of addiction and create a pathway into recovery.
People need help. Let's get out there and help them.
Yeah.
So I'll continue on with the promo. Bliss Trio by Essential Grace.
Yay.
Op Shop Christmas raffle. We've got a raffle coming up, so get your raffle tickets. Living Wisdom. What's this one?
Yes, Living Wisdom.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what this is. This is Mark Johnson's training course for people in recovery, early recovery. You'd really love to do it. I'm going to do it, even though I've been 8 years clean. But it's going to strengthen your recovery. Okay, it's just some teaching that Mark Johnson has put together over many years of recovery, and it covers so many topics. And addiction and emotional health seminar it's called. There's 6 topics that you cover, 6 modules, and each module is like $20. Honestly, $40 a day. He's doing it at underneath his cost because he has to come from the Sunshine Coast, and he's doing it to help you guys, right? So register. There's limited spaces, so it works out 3 days worth of the training, and you get to hang out with us. So you know,
And if it's going to save your life, it's well worth it. So
pretty cheap, isn't it?
It's a wealth of knowledge there by the sounds of it.
Yeah.
That's on the 9th of December to the 11th
That's it.
of December.
And you do have to pre-register, right? It's in Rank Street in Southport. I believe there may be opportunities to cross over live on Zoom, but call the number on our event page, and just to get more details. But it is on the event page. You can book. I've already registered. I was the first one up. I'm like, anything to secure my recovery. I'm not losing it. I'm in care, and you know, I need all the help I can get.
And you know, if it's not far away, so get in there and you can book your spots.
Awesome.
Okie doke. So we'll continue on. Calling for. Now we need female presenters.
We do.
We need female presenters.
One.
We need
No, 2.
2.
One for Ipswich
One for Ipswich.
and one for Townsville.
Townsville. Okay.
Because our Townsville office is opening very soon.
Okay.
Our Ipswich office is opening, and we've just launched our WA office.
Right.
That's super exciting.
Well, you know, it wouldn't hurt to get a female perspective down at Coffs Harbour at some stage too.
There you go.
So yeah,
So there we
anyone
need
who's
3
listening
females.
in from around that area, approach us.
Yep,
Contact us.
that's awesome.
Okay, now we need a barista.
Yeah, well, you know what's happening? We're
Yes.
opening up a coffee cup, right? And so the company is actually giving away free training for the right person, right? So you'll be trained as a barista. You'll get the work experience here with us, okay? It is volunteering, But we will give you free coffee, lots of hugs, and you'll get the experience you need and the training you need to be able to go out and get a job.
Yeah,
so,
that's good, really good. If I was up here, I'd do that.
It's awesome,
and who doesn't want to know how to make a good cup of coffee?
Oh, look, yeah, they have to.
No, that's, definitely. That's a good thing to do.
So apply. Private message us or email us.
Definitely. And we need admin people up here in the anti-ice campaign.
Yep.
We need volunteers to join. We need people to get on board. We need to fight back against this terrible scourge on society.
Yeah.
We need people to get behind us, help us out. We're getting great results. We're getting people that are seeking help for this terrible affliction, and that's great. You know, we're doing this forum online. We're getting great feedback. We've been getting good feedback from where I come from, down Coffs Harbour in the North Coast area of New South Wales. We're watching it slowly grow. With the COVID restrictions starting to ease now, we're going to be able to have a chance to get out a bit more in the community, to the schools, and start fighting back against this this terrible thing that's got quite a bad hold on us.
It does. It certainly does. And you know what, Ben? It's not only, I mean, we're talking about ice tonight, but tonight we have a little bit of a different show because we're going to talk to you guys about other drugs as well, yeah? Because ice is yes, absolutely horrific, and it brings people down so fast, but there are other drugs that, you know, they all are not good, right? Even prescription drugs. When we go into the schools, I talk to the kids, you know, prescription drugs will have a little leaflet in there, and it'll say, you know, these are the side effects, right? But the doctor will monitor you to make sure that you don't have those side effects and stuff. Well, with the pipe or any other drugs, you don't get a leaflet in there, right? We're your leaflet in the schools. We're going to tell you what's going to happen. And let me tell you, it's not pretty, right? But
people need to know.
They do need to know, and you know, there are gateway drugs, and you know, we have these arguments out there, you know, oh, there's no gateway drug. Well, you know, most people that we work with have actually started somewhere.
Yeah, and yeah, I mean, and a lot of these, not just drugs, addictions, they overlap each other, they work with each other. So, you know, people that have got ice addictions, I know a lot of my old friends that were ice addicts, they gamble heavily, and then, you know, other addictions, smoking and you know, drinking and whatnot. But
tell me about the guest we have.
Yes,
because we haven't introduced you yet.
Darryl.
There you go. You're sitting here.
Hi guys, I'm Darryl, and I'm a recovering addict, and yeah, it's great to be here tonight, and I hope my story may be able to help someone out there tonight that they may be able to find the similarities, and I touch bases with someone out there, which makes it all the more better that the rewards of carrying the message to other people that are less fortunate than myself. So it's great to be here, and great to have great people beside me on either side of me, and my daughter's here with me tonight. So yeah, I thank you all for just listen to what I've got to share on.
Awesome. Before we go further, can you please press share on your while you're watching this right now? Share it on your Facebook, please, because you don't know who needs to hear this message. Okay, tonight we're going to be talking about a lot of other drugs as well as ice, but we're going to be talking to Darryl. So I want you to share the message. We can do our bit, but press share. Click it now.
Yeah, put it on share, put it on your Facebook page, and then that can reach out to more people. And even, like we say, even if it's just that one person, if we're all doing it, we know how many people this drug affects, and if you don't know someone directly, they'll know someone who is affected by this drug.
That's awesome.
I guess we'll start with your story, a little bit of history. Where do you come from? And
yeah, thanks, Ben.
No worries.
I originally come Ben from the bush out west in New South Wales. I'm one of those unfortunate ones that follow New South Wales and stay
So do I.
Anyway, still going to And I come from a family of 5 boys. I have no sisters in that. I was reared and raised by a stepfather.
Right.
And he was a good, clean, honest man. He didn't have really any vices or anything like that. He's the only father I ever knew, and I had 3 step brothers. Actually, I call them my brothers because the only brothers I ever knew, and I had an older brother, which I never met until I was 40 years later. When my mum remarried, my stepdad didn't want either of us because they weren't his, and he forced mum into adopting my older brother out, and he got adopted out. So I was in the pram. So when I grew up a little bit, I thought that was my real father, and I thought I was the oldest in the family. We lived at a place called Warren.
Warren, I come from Forbes.
Oh,
so
Forbes.
Everyone who's watching in Forbes, my hometown, I'll say hello. And I know there is, because I've got a lot of friends that know.
So is that next door to each other?
It's Central West.
Central West,
Wow.
So
we were Group 11 in the rugby league, so Warren, wouldn't be.
So we've got the similarities already,
Ben. We have. I'm a country boy.
Can I just say something about that though? I spoke to somebody from the area, not that particular town, but central inland a little bit in New South Wales. And you know they've got kids as young as 8 using ice on the streets there.
Is that right?
Yeah, trafficking ice and using ice. 8.
I know. I've seen. I've seen it was a documentary about Wellington. Wellington's quite bad.
Well, there's a lot of Aborigines in Wellington.
And it's gone straight through the Aboriginal communities, and it's quite sad because I actually played football with a couple of blokes from Wellington, and they've seen what I'm doing online, like on their Facebook, and they've said, good on you, mate.
Yeah.
So, but I know it's quite bad in Wellington, and it was quite bad in Toowoomba, where I come from, where I was in my adult life living. So I know with some of these communities, it's gone right through it, and it's unfortunate because, like I said, I grew up with some of these lads. I played footy with them, and it's really taken a hold of their communities.
Yep, absolutely. Communities are closing down. And they've been on ABC and stuff. They're closing down because they're scared to go out because the whole town has been absolutely destroyed from people on ice, and it's just really sad. But let's get back on the topic.
Yes. So you're from Warren?
Yeah, from Warren. I left Warren when I was 10 years of age, and we came to the city. Dad was looking for work and that, and he ended up working as the head keeper for Taronga Park Zoo for many years under Sir Edward Holstrom, and I got into a bit of crime in Sydney as a young fella, and doing a bit of shoplifting and stuff like that. So I felt as though when I look back in my life that I had an addictive nature.
Right.
And I was a people pleaser. I wanted to please people, that self-seeking approval, and I was like that as a boy. And I went to school at Manly Primary School, and my father used to give me the army haircuts, and I had brill cream in my hair, and I had black hair, and I was at a school where they all rode surfboards. Yeah, right. So all it was, it was just I learnt to sort of fight and had to stand up for myself because they looked at me and called me the brill cream kid, So it was a.
So you started a bit of petty crime and drinking and that sort of a scene, was it?
Yeah, well, I picked up actually. I actually went into a boys' home at 12 years of age for breaking into factories and that, and I came out of there, and anyway, I went to Manly Boys High School, and I went into another boys' home for car stealing called Mount Penang, Gosford, and from there I got out, and I was 16 years of age, and I was still finishing off high school. And what happened, I got introduced to my first drink. We actually wagged school that day, and I went to a surf club out at Newport, and we broke into the surf club, and they had a lot of grog in there, and we took all the grog back to an abandoned house. So that was my first introduction to any mind-altering substance in my body, and I had a wonderful feeling and a wonderful experience temporarily there before I got violently sick and stuff like that, and I vomited all over myself, and I had to put my uniform back on and go home and face my father. My father knew I was on there. So he gave me a terrible hiding, and you think that'll be it. That'll be the end of the alcohol. But I had for a moment that wonderful feeling. It was the effect that I had. That I felt bulletproof. I felt confident and stuff like that. So that's where I came to my addiction, and it slowly but surely got worse. It was progressive and that. And I experienced the same thing Yeah.
I drank at a young age, you know, and it doesn't. It gets worse before it gets better, you know. Like I remember coming home, and I was actually a bit younger. I would have been about 12 or 13, and coming home, and Mum, she was not impressed, and I think I got, you know, clip up the ear, maybe. But yeah, and I've done the wrong thing because I got brought home in the cop wagon, and you know, she was worried. She would have been worried about me, you know. I probably said I was off doing something, you know, something that was completely different than what I was up to.
Yeah, so. I know my mother used to say to me, she said, and I didn't know what she was talking about. It was actually once we were out, we went out, and my stepdad and my dad realistically took us out for Sunday drives. He used to believe in the baked dinner for lunch, and we'd go for a Sunday drive, and he had a station wagon, an old Holden and that. And they used to pull up before they'd come back, and they used to have a shandy, and they actually offered me a shandy.
Yep.
And I had the shandy, and I never forget my dad turning around to me, and he said, if there's only one good bit of advice I'm going to give you, he said, you should never touch alcohol.
Is that right?
And I didn't know what he meant by that, and I thought, wow, you know, that was, he obviously, now that I look back, seen change in me. Because what happened, my mother, when I used to come home for night time, and the next day, she'd say, you know, she said, I reared and raised you, Darryl, from a baby. She said, I had a wonderful boy in you, but she said, I've got a nickname for you. And I said, what do you mean? She said, don't you know what you do? And I didn't realise with the alcohol, I had blackouts every time I drank. I never remember what I did. And she said, you have no recollection. And I said, no, what? Oh, you've threatened to throw me down the stairs, and you've threatened to hit me and everything like that. And I said, I'd never do that to you, Mum, I love you. And she said, I've got a nickname for you. And it stuck with me till this day. And I understand about addiction, how it changes us, you know. And I said, well, what's the nickname you've got to me? She said, you're out of the movie, you're Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. She said, you're beautiful when you don't drink. And she said, when you put the anything mind-altering into you, she said, you change. And she said, you're an absolute maniac and a villain.
Yeah, the alcohol, I mean, I've done different drugs, and this is a predominantly ice recovery show, but alcohol, I've done my dumbest moment, had my stupidest moments on alcohol. So I do understand, and that blacking out, I've experienced that. Yeah. And I've done some terrible things. I've destroyed houses. And I don't just mean put a couple of holes in the wall. Destroyed the house. Yeah. And then you wake up the next day, and it's horrible. And you know, I often wondered, you know, these people that they get behind the wheel of a car, and they clean someone up and they kill someone, or you know, they killed a child or something. The next day when they wake up in jail, hungover, you know, realising what they've done. So
and that's what basically, you're dead right. That's what happened to me. I ended up graduating, they call it. I ended up going into Long Bay, and most of my crimes, once I got into the alcohol, everything that I did was all petty, car stealing and stuff like that, was all alcohol related. I remember going into jail, and you know, and most of the time I went to jail for basically was for disqualified driving, and that the result of disqualified driving was from drink driving. Right. And they disqualified me and stuff like that, and when I had a terrible magistrate down at Manly, and he threw a book at me and he jailed me once I came back into his court for disqualified driving. Yeah. And I got a lengthy sentence in the 70s for car stealing, and I ended up going to Bathurst, and it was the last time I ever went into prison. I got caught in the Bathurst riots in 1974, and they burnt the jail to the ground, and I got shanghaied back to Long Bay Jail, and I got charged with destroying government property and that, and I got extra time on my prison sentence.
So you got caught up in the riot as well?
Yeah, I did. It was a terrible thing that, you know, we got beaten to a pulp. Yeah, true. And that by a special operations division that came in there to find out who were the culprits that instigated the riot, you know. Right. And so yeah, my life, it started to become what we call step one. It became unmanageable, and I couldn't stop when I wanted to stop when I drank. You know, and then I got introduced to, I went into hospital, and I got my kneecap taken out playing footy, and anyway, in those days it was the Royal North Shore Hospital in Sydney, and if you had pain, they came around and gave you a nice big jab of morphine. And I thought, oh, that's no problem to me. I didn't think I had a problem with the grog or anything like that, but I started to think, geez, this is nice stuff that they're putting into me. And I said, how's your pain? I thought, oh, it's really bad, and I started to fake the pain, and they just filled me up with morphine and just kept me totally on the morphine. I got out of hospital, and the first place I went was to King's Cross to get on and get some morphine. So I consequently had swapped what we call the bitch for the witch. And I realise now that I've got the addictive nature. I'm compulsive and I'm obsessive in whatever I do. It doesn't matter even if it's work. I'm a workaholic. You put any mind-altering drug into me or anything that's mind-altering, I want more of it. And this disease is what we call is a disease of more. I want more. So
that opened the door to drugs.
Yes.
From that, because I think maybe, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, right? Because I didn't start with alcohol, but did it come to a point where it started to get boring and you needed something more?
Yeah, I did, and I thought to myself, well, the morphine didn't seem to be really good, and then came along. They used to call it go fast, goey. Yeah, and it was speed, and anyway, I'd sort of given away the morphine and that, and anyway, then all of a sudden I found myself drinking alcohol, and I was snorting speed. Then it got worse. The progress of our diseases, it just gets worse, grows in us. And then all of a sudden, I started using shooting up speed. And what happened in the early 70s, there was no such thing as exchange needles. And so I was using the dirty needles, and then down the track, on the scene was AIDS, and I'll never forget the AIDS, and I had total disregard for it. I won't get that or anything like that, and we had a lot of people that were gay, and I've got nothing against gay people or anything. I've got some good friends that are gay, and anyway, we're still using the dirty needle, and anyway, I got sick, and I didn't know what was wrong with me. I had a job on the garbage trucks. My dad said to me, he said, you need to go to work. He said, your thieving's has let you down. He said, you're not a good cook. So he said, you're better off going to work. So, and he said, don't listen to your mum about he got into me about God. And he told me, he said, there is no such thing as a God, Darryl, and everything like that, because my mum was spiritual. And he said, if you think there is a God and he's so powerful, why have we got rapes and murders and everything like that? And I started to think along those lines and that. And he said, you know what? He said, Darryl, when you die, he said, they put you in a box and they put you in the ground. He said, you know what happens? He said, the maggots eat you. And he said, it's the end of days. He said, no more. It's all gone. And I thought, geez, so I adopted that atheist bit, that I didn't like people that had this so-called God in their life, and I couldn't relate to anything. I thought all things were luck and coincidences, and boy, I've learned that there's no such thing as luck and coincidences.
You hear that, people they'll justify it. They'll say, why is there a little Iraqi kid over in the streets dying of hunger, or like I said, why people getting raped and murdered, and I say to people, well, that's not God. No, that's people doing that.
Yeah, and that's what I thought. That there was no God, and this was, if there was a God, he'd stop all that, and we'd have a perfect, race of, sin-free people.
It's us. Yeah.
It's us.
Where's us to help that? We make choices. We make choices that make a good choice. It has a good side effect and good consequences. You make a choice that's negative or dark, or that's going to inflict you with a negative result. And the price of sin is death. I mean, you've got to choose life so that you can live. So
and you're dead right. Your thinking determines your future.
Yeah, that's right.
But you don't know at that time. So with alcohol, it's really easy to go. Everyone does it. It's a social thing. Let's go partying. Let's have a drink. And that opens doorways. See, the body builds tolerance. and soon enough, you know, you'll want something else, and you drink more, and you have something else, because your body, it doesn't react like that anymore, like you wanted to the first time. So you try other stuff. So when we talk about a doorway drug, a gateway drug, you know, it is, you know, that drinking and marijuana,
it leads to
a couple of party pills, whatever.
I do have something to say on that that gateway drug, but after that I do want to talk about your experience and then how you got sick from the needles and that, because my uncles did. But before we go to that, I remember when I was a teenager, I was quite good at rugby league, and the club I played for, they sent me to Armadale for a football clinic, and Wayne Bennett was there.
Oh, right.
And he was
a master coach.
He was talking to us younger players, and he was just saying, you know, most players that do make it, they make it on, you know, from how hard they try. You know, only 1% will make it on you know, raw talent. And then he went on to say about a friend of his, whose son was I think he did catch AIDS.
Oh, okay.
And he was saying how the son was. He said to his father, he said, "Dad, don't let anyone tell you that marijuana isn't a gateway drug." Now, I smoked marijuana back then, and I sort of scoffed at this story. But now that now because I knew everything back when I was, 16, 17 years old, and I just smoked, smoked a bit of marijuana. Little did I know that I was going to go and do these things. So I scoffed at that idea, marijuana is a gateway drug.
Yeah, the stepping stone.
Yeah. But it really is, because you mean there are people who just smoke marijuana, but it encompasses that whole scene of people. If you're at parties, if you're drinking, and if other drugs are going to crop up.
And your body adjusts to it, Ben.
That's right.
It doesn't do anything anymore. So then you start, why not have a puff of something else?
Yeah, that's right.
But two things I want to say on that, because it just prompted me to remind people at home, guys, long-term use of marijuana can cause schizophrenia.
Psychotic.
Honestly, it kills brain cells. And not to mention, Ben, you know as well as I do that they're lacing marijuana with ice today.
That too.
And the paranoia that comes into it.
Oh.
Yes.
But also, the point I'm making...
And the synthetic marijuana.
That's right.
Yeah.
And the point I'm making, you're around that whole scene, so you're eventually going to come across someone that's got ice or, these other drugs, but you try this ice, you do get hooked off at once. And... you'll think this is the greatest thing ever. This solves all my problems. I can think clearer. It reminds me of that movie Limitless, where he could do everything and everything.
Become the professor,
but
right?
He thinks he can. In your own mind you can. But out there, you're not really doing that.
And let's be honest, people who have tried it, we do it because it does give you that euphoric feeling. We don't do it because we want to end up in the gutter and begging for food and
which is really
jobs,
what happens.
Which is what does happen. You don't see that side of it.
So, and it is too. You did right. What are we seeking? We're seeking the effect.
Yeah.
And if you've got an addictive personality, addictive nature, the one thing I learned, you're never going to control anything mind altering in your body or in your mind.
But Darryl, what about those people at home that are going, I don't have an addictive personality, I can stop whenever I want, but they might be doing drugs here and there, and then they start using, regularly. What are you saying?
My experience to that is, and a lot, most people that have addictions, I believe, it's in the genes. Because I see in families, I used to blame it that I hung around with Joe Blow, and he was my problem. I played the blame game on everything, and I blamed them for it. But when I look back, and I actually got clean, I had a good look in my own backyard. I looked at my brothers, and all of a sudden, the way I drank I thought was normal. And I'd realised I was a full-blown alcoholic, and I realised I had two brothers that were full-blown alcoholics. They could not stop when they wanted to. And I seen it. And then when I worked in rehab, I started to do a lot of study on families, backgrounds and that. And you'll find in most of them, like dysfunctional families and stuff like that. But I find it goes back genetically. Look, I had a huge problem because I contested that because I said my mother did not have an addiction. I seen her drunk once in her life, and she never drank alcohol. My stepfather, well, he was not my real father, but I asked about my real father, and she said, your real father never drank, and everything like that. So I was wondering, where did this come from? But then the slip came. She said, your grandfather, he died before you were born, Darryl, and your grandmother did too. She said, but your grandfather, he was a binge drinker, and when he drank, we had to lock ourselves in our room. He terrorised us. He was a draftsman by trade. And she said, beautiful man, a beautiful dad, but she said, when he drank, she said, but then as soon as I mentioned the word, oh, now I know where my addiction came from, the alcohol, she defended him to the max. She said, oh no, he was never an alcoholic. Because if you talk to someone with doesn't have an addictive nature, or is not an alcoholic or an ice addict or anything like that, you can't relate to them because they think everyone can stop like a normal person can stop. So you just say no and you can stop. But when you've got that personality and you've got that addictive nature, whatever you put into them, the old saying is, one is one too many and 100's not enough.
That's right.
And I just want to say that, sorry Ben, that's where ice is different, okay? Because ice hijacks the frontal lobe of your brain. And it takes away your capacity to think a logic, rational decision, and you're no longer in control of yourself. Your midbrain is, which is your animal brain, and your animal brain acts on instinct, okay, like an animal. It'll do whatever it needs to do for the next 5 minutes of pleasure. So the frontal lobe is non-operational, and that's why we are pushing against this problem and trying to warn our kids. I mean, no drugs, alcohol. I mean. You had a major operation because of the impact of that, and like it destroys lives. But this drug, ice, is like nothing. 2015 task force report will tell you the government did an evaluation on it. It's like no other drug they've ever known, even worse than heroin, because not that it's worse or better, it's just different. It hijacks your frontal lobe, so you're not able to even think about that. That's what's causing my pain. You know what I mean?
I guess I've been blessed in that area. The Salvation Army that I worked for at Moonia there invited me to some of their seminars that was run by the drug squad from Brisbane. And I was at Logan High School somewhere that we went to, and they had a big table, and on that table was the ingredients that went into it. And I guess I'm blessed that frightened me so much, what went into that stuff. And literally what I was explained was, it was like a potato chip being over fried to a crisp. It fried your brain. And dealing with ice addicts myself in the rehab, I had some of the clients and that, they basically, the outstanding defect that I've seen in the two defects were, they were super aggressive and they were paranoid. They were the two main distinctive defects that I've seen in an ice addict.
It's horrible, but let's go back to, because alcohol's got some horrible impacts on the body and the brain as well.
It's funny you talk about that. I asked the head of the drug squad that night about a few more questions I needed to ask on that, and I seen him in the car park when I was going home, and he said, obviously you have an addiction yourself, and I said, I'm blessed I never got into the ice, but I said, I got into the alcohol. And he said, Darryl, he said, my superiors reprimanded me before I came here tonight, and he said I did want to talk on the alcohol. He said for us in the community, and guys, this is why I'm sharing a little bit on it tonight, about the ice is a real killer and it's epidemic proportions, and it's really wiping out the young like you don't believe. But the alcohol, do never underestimate alcohol. Alcohol, for a starter, is a depressant, and it basically it makes you super aggressive. And I found when I talked to this head of the drug squad, he said out of all drugs, he said the worst that we come across out of all put together, he said the number one major one is the alcohol. He said with the car accidents and domestic violences and stuff like that. And that's why, guys, I'm just sharing a little bit on the dangers of alcohol. Ice is far outweighing everything that we've had around and experienced, and I'm absolutely, I have a healthy fear for ice, but the alcohol, don't disregard it, and don't lose respect for it, because it'll take you out and it'll kill you.
I think what I wanted to talk to about, and you're beginning to touch on, about back in the 70s and that sort of thing, You know, there was no needle exchanges, and blokes, you know, and women, they were using sharing each other's needles. So AIDS took off, but also hepatitis C.
Yes.
Now, I had two uncles, and they got the hepatitis C back in that era, and they later on in life they also drank, and
real killer.
and yeah,
real
and you're not,
killer.
and then obviously they tell you not to, but an alcoholic's not going to stop, and so you know, with the hepatitis C, it affects your liver. That's
Yes,
right.
it does.
Yeah.
It camps in your liver and eats your liver right.
So they couldn't filter the alcohol properly, and they got the sclerosis.
Cirrhosis of the liver. Yeah.
And
it's scarring, they call it. Is another word for it.
Yeah.
Just quickly, people that don't understand cirrhosis, and we've got this myth that we hear, folks, that the liver does repair itself. Yes, it does repair itself. Only up to the stage where it's a fatty liver. You go beyond a fatty liver and it goes to cirrhosis. And putting it in simple terms, as a doctor said to me, because I actually said, oh, but it should heal even cirrhosis. He said, Darryl, when you have an operation, he said, you had an operation? And I said, yes, I have. He said, is the scar still there? And I said, it's there forever. He said, it's the same with cirrhosis. It is scarring, it stays there. If you stop drinking, it'll never go any further.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so, and like I was saying, that's what happened to them, and they died in their 50s.
Yes.
And it's tragic, you know, because their daughters, they're having babies now, and then they didn't get a chance to see their grandkids, and you know, there's a hole there. Both my Uncle Craig and Uncle Glenn, and we love them very much. They're part of our family, but you know, some of them die in their 50s, you know, from preventable disease.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's tragic, you know, and it's heartbreaking. So, but I understand that there's treatments for the Hep C these days.
There is. I got onto the treatment 4 years ago, and I tried interferon treatment and with ribavirin, and I tell you what a nasty. You had to inject yourself once a week, and what a nasty thing to try and get rid of Hep C.
Yeah.
It made you very aggressive. It made you suicidal. All my tongue had split. I bled from the esophagus, and when I had my injection, the first time I had my injection, they said, do not go to work. And anyway, I went against that. I ran on my own will, and I went to work, and my boss knew that I was starting the Hep C treatment. And he looked at me and he said, Darryl, he said, by any chance, he said, did you inject yourself with that interferon you were telling me with? I said, what do you say that for? He said, did you? And I said, yes, I did. He said, go home. And I said, well, why? What's this happening? He said, the look on you, he said, your face is contorted with rage. So he said, please, he said, you've got to leave and go home. And I understand it, guys, what happened in the rehab. I was going to get onto it in the rehab. And they said, under no circumstances will we allow anyone to have interferon treatment in the rehab. And I thought they were being nasty with me. And it's when I got out of rehab and I tried the interferon, I'd realised, and then something came up.
Sorry, I'm confused. What is the interferon?
The interferon is to get rid of Hep C.
Yeah, it's a
Oh,
Yeah,
it's a drug.
and it's a drug, and it's
Right.
given by injection. I'll tell you what it's like. It's a form of chemotherapy in a way.
Wow.
Yeah, and you inject yourself.
Because a lot of people, like
Yeah.
myself, wouldn't know what it
Yeah,
was.
and that's what it is. They don't have interferon anymore.
Yeah.
They don't.
And what happened was, to make just a quick example on that, there was a guy that that they did let have interferon on program, and I said, how come you let him have interferon, you didn't let me have interferon program? He said he had a really good nature and there was no problem with him. So when I started interferon, I'd realised my behaviour was out of control.
Wow.
And I understood that people that if they'd have tried interferon in the rehab, they'd have probably ended up killing the caseworkers or run them up in there. So yeah, but anyway, just quickly,
Yes.
4 years ago came along a tablet, and it was called I forget the name of it now, but one-a-day tablet, and it was a cure-all for hepatitis C. And I had the worst strain because I drank and I had cirrhosis. And I had there's 4 different strains, guys, of hepatitis C. It goes 1A, 1B, and C and down to D. I had genotype 1A, which is the worst one.
So you only get it from sharing a needle. Is
Yes.
that the only way you
Yeah,
get it?
Yeah. You know, I tried to tell my wife, and guys, I'll put it in the best way I can. my sex relation died with my wife, and it was because I told my wife in all honesty that I'd had Hep C, and she said, I'll get it through sperm. And I said, I've been told by the specialist that you can't get it through sperm. And there was no sex happening whatsoever. And anyway, she came when I had a liver biopsy, and guys, they're not really nice to have. It's a big stainless steel rod with barbs on it. They lay you on the side, that little diaphragm around your liver, and you're wide awake when you have it. They give you a local anesthetic, and they stab you in the side with this barb straight through your liver, and they pull out, the barbs pull out hunks of your liver. And that's part of the WATSI. But anyway, getting back, they'd introduced this tablet that came out, one-a-day tablet, and genotype 1A, and they said 95% success rate. And so anyway, I tried it. I had a blood test, and that was 30 days later, and I rang up the PA and I asked them, I said, how did my blood test go? And they said, Darryl, you have cleared it. You have no trace of Hep C in your body. And I never forget, I cried. I had the Hep C in my body for 30 years. And I cried. My wife said, who upset you on the phone? I said, no, I've waited for this news for 30 years. I said, I've been cleared of Hep C. I had to stay on the treatment. Most people stay on the treatment for 3 months. I stayed on it for 6 months, and I was totally cleared of it after that. And my Hep C has completely disappeared, and it's never come back again.
Amazing.
So anyone with Hep C, they're best to go and see the GP, get it sorted, clear it up, because eventually it will. What I understand is, if you don't, it affects your liver, and your liver is it filters all the toxins out of your body.
Yeah.
Now, if your liver's not functioning properly,
your liver's your chemical factory.
Yeah, that's right. So if that's not functioning properly, you're going to have a lot of problems. So if you've got the Hep C, go and see your GP, get it sorted. There is treatments for it.
Because I'll tell you something else, guys. It is a nasty death, this cirrhosis of the liver.
Yeah.
What happens, your liver is the chemical factory, and it diverts all the chemicals all over your body and everything like that, and supplies your body with all the chemicals needed. What happens when your liver is shutting down in final stages, and I have seen it, you lose your mind. What happens is the liver cannot get rid of the toxins out of your body. The toxins go right through your bloodstream, and they go through your brain. And the brain shuts down, and you go mad.
Wow.
You just completely go mad. I had a sponsee a couple of weeks before I went in and had my liver done, and he died from the toxins that killed his brain.
Yeah, I seen with my uncle, the skin starts going yellow.
Yeah.
They can't get the toxins out, and then he got bloated, and they were having to drain that. So it's a nasty sort of.
So how are we going for
I
time?
have a question. Well, we got very soon. I want to ask you a very important question. But before I do that one, did you stop drinking when you found out? Yeah, you tell me.
No.
Oh, you were still drinking.
Oh
through
yeah.
the whole thing.
Yeah. This is
Through
how.
the whole treatment.
This is how. Oh no. When I had the treatment, no, I'd stopped drinking.
So
I was out.
What prompted you to stop? I want to know.
What prompted me to stop actually drinking, abstain from alcohol is the 1st of November 2007. I woke up and me blackouts, and guys, I used to treat my wife very badly from me blackouts, physically and mentally torture my wife, and I'm still with us today and everything like that. What happened? I woke up in the morning. My wife said to me, "You've really done it this time." And I said, "What have I done? Have I terrorised you? Have I thrown the TV through the wall or something like that?" And she said, "No." She said, "But go and look in the mirror." Guys, I went and had a look in the mirror, and I'd seen it happen before, and that when I looked in the mirror, I was bright yellow. My whites of my eyes were pure yellow. All my skin was yellow. My stomach had retained the fluid overnight. My stomach was ballooned out. My ankles were swollen beyond belief, and I knew that what the doctors had said, your liver will collapse on you. Guys, I went into the hospital that day, and anyway, they did a liver biopsy, and what happened was they came back and they said, "Who's next of kin?" And I said, "My wife." And they said, "We need to see your wife." So my wife came in the next day, and they sat her on the bed, and they said, "Darryl, have you got a will made out?" And I said, I sort of have. They said, "Darryl, you need to get your will sorted. You need to get your life in order, everything sorted." And I said, "Why are you telling me this?" He said, "In our estimation, you have lost 80% of your liver. The hepatitis C is alive and raging out of control, and it's going to engulf that 20% of your liver. You can live on 10% of your liver. You can live on bugger all of your liver. But he said, within 3 months, you will be pronounced dead. You will die from this disease. And, you know, guys, I didn't know what to do. I was terrified. I broke down and cried. And you know, the worst thing it was there was the consequences that I'd caused other people through my drinking and my behaviour. My wife broke down in front of me and said, how could you have done what you did to me? This is the addiction, guys. It doesn't matter what it is, the consequences of our addictions. And she said, how could you have treated me so badly? She said, I fell in love with you and I married you because I was madly in love with you. And she said, you treated me badly in all aspects of life. And she said, now the final bit is going to come. You're going to leave me alone and you're going to die. And you know what, guys? I didn't know what to do. I was completely insane. My thinking was all astray. And I thought to myself, get out of here and go and commit suicide. Go and have a drink and go and jump off the bridge. And I had a moment of sanity. And I said, why don't I try a rehab and see if I can prove the doctors wrong? And I did. I rang up Munya at Red Hill and I asked, could I come in? And they really didn't want me in. Major Graham had told me a few months down the track that he had a battle with the caseworkers. And they said, we've got a guy coming in from the PA hospital, has 3 months to live. And they said, we don't want him in here, he's going to die. What point is this? And Major Graham had said to me, he said, I had to jump up and said, I run the rehab here. And he said, this guy is coming onto program. And he said, the reason why it is called duty of care. And he said, and that's it. So I came onto program. And I was confronted with a whole new aspect of life. It was like, I wanted to live. I'd run out of options. And you know, when you're confronted with death, you're scared. Yeah. And I got really scared. My bulletproof vest had gone and everything like that. And I'm confronted with death and I thought, what do I do? You know, so I'm into rehab. And the greatest challenge of all came to me. I was presented with the 12 steps of recovery. The first step, okay, the powerlessness, the unmanageability. I admitted the unmanageability because my life had become a mess. And here I was going to die. But for some unknown reason, I always believed that one day I'd master this addiction and I'd had gained control over it. And that was still a reserve in me. The worst part came in the biggest challenge was step 2. Coming to find a power greater than myself and asking to be restored to sanity. Like, you know, thinking that I could control my drinking and thinking that maybe I'll be all right and everything like that. There's the insanity. And then step 3, once admitting that there was a power greater than me, handing my will and my life over to a power greater than myself. Guys, that was the most challenging thing in my life because you know what? As I said before, I was brought up as an atheist. And here I was thinking that there is no God. And when you die, the maggots are going to eat you in the box. So what was I left with? So all I did, guys, I stayed around that rehab, fake it till you make it. And I just ticked the boxes and said, yes, I'm powerless over me grog, and my life's unmanageable, and yes, there is a God and everything like that. Guys, I believed in nothing really. You know what happened? The insanity bit came in. I got past 3 months. The yellow had gone away. I was still alive. And guys, when you got addictions, we suffer badly with egos. My ego had come back in and said, you can't even kill me. I reckon it's time to have a drink. You know what I did? I drank in the rehab.
Wow.
I lasted up, the program was a 48-week program. I'd lasted up to about 33 weeks. I'd escaped through breathalyzers, manoeuvred my way around like a cunning alcoholic I was. You know, all I did was lie and everything like that. And anyway, I came back drunk and they eventually caught me. So I went home and I went home, got into the grog, came back. They put me on a breathalyzer. I didn't realise how drunk I was, but my behaviour had changed. You know, I could never guarantee my behaviour once I drank. So anyway, they kicked me out, and I went back and I drank like I've never drank before, and I realised the progressive disease it was. And you know what? I screamed out in desperation, if there is a God, please, please, please help me. And I was never going to go back to the rehab. A week later, I was on a bus going back to the rehab, and I thought, this is a bit strange. And anyway, I went back there, and I went in for an interview to come back on program. And I thought everyone was going to judge me and say, you're hopeless. But everyone put their hands out that were on program and said, Darryl, welcome back. It's great to see you, and stuff like that. The major came to me and he said, we're going to put you back on program. And he said, I'm going to ask you one question. Will you go to any lengths to get clean and stay sober? He went to any lengths to get a drug and a drink. And I said, I will. So they brought me back onto program. I came back in there and I didn't know what to make of all of this. And the big confrontation came, guys, with me when I was confronted with a guy that was on program. He said, Darryl, he said, have you surrendered? I said, yes, of course I have. I said, I realise I'm an alcoholic and I can't do this on my own. And he said, Darryl, I've got bad news for you. You're never going to make it. I said, why do you say that? And he said, Darryl, he said, this is a spiritual program, the 12 steps of recovery. He said, you have to find a higher power. You will never make it without a higher power. And I said, oh, yes, I will. And he said, I'm going to put the challenge to you. Name the people that you know that have made it without a higher power.
That's right.
And I said, well, just hang on a minute. I said, I'm a bit confused. I actually can't remember anyone at the moment. But I said, I'm just a bit confused. I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll have a list for you by tea time. And he said, that's great. See you at tea time. Tea time came. He said, where's your list? You know, guys, I had nobody.
Yeah.
I had realised the success and the secret to getting this spiritual program, the 12 steps to recovery, was I had to find a power greater than myself. Yeah. Why, guys? My power on my own to stop drinking and taking drugs failed me miserably. Yeah. So I had to seek out a higher power. Now, what did I do about that? I didn't know what to do, and I thought I only believed in what I could see. I had to somehow find and believe in something I couldn't see. Big challenge. But you know what? I asked the guys around the rehab. I seen the guys progressing in their recovery. They were starting to look well, and they were starting to get the peace and the happiness and that. And I thought, wow, where have they got this from? And I said, where do you get this from? He said, Darryl, we pray. You know, I had the one word in my vocabulary that came into my head was, I became willing. And the willingness took me to my room. Yeah. And I said to myself, I'm going to have a crack at this. I laid in my bed, guys, and all I did, I said, God, I don't believe you exist. But I said, if you do exist, for some insane, known reason, I said, prove to me you exist. I'm going to ask you to prove yourself. I'm going to ask you this. Can you take away from me the compulsions and the desires to not pick up drugs or the alcohol? Can you do that for me? Prove to me that you can do that. Prove to me you exist. Yeah. I've got nothing, no evidence. So, guys, what I did is I kept praying every night. I never changed my prayer. I went through, and it was about 3 months down the track. One night, I realised what it was now. It was the Holy Spirit convicting me. But what happened this night was I was sitting there, and I was still smoking cigarettes in those days, and suddenly self-awareness had come over me. And what it was, Darryl, do you realise what you've been praying for, that you haven't entertained the thought of a drink or a drug in 3 months?
Wow.
And I thought, wow, how can this be? And I thought, oh, maybe this is the calm before the storm. My caseworker was a pastor. God had, I realised my higher power is now. But anyway, I went to see my caseworker the next day, and he was a big white South African, built like a big springboks and very intimidating, and And anyway, I told him the story, and he said to me, Darryl, do you believe there's been an intervention of a higher power, a power greater than you? And I said, something happened. He said, no, do you believe there's a higher power, an intervention? And I said, yes, I do. He said, before you leave this room, remember what I said to you. And he said, name your higher power. And out of my mouth, guys, came the word God. And it's very simple. He said to me, before you leave, he said, someone made you, right? And I said, yes, they did make me. He said, someone made the earth. And I said, that's correct. And he said, someone made the universe, correct? And I said, that's right. He said, he is your creator. Now open the door and let him in. And guys, from that day, slowly but surely, I opened the door and I let my higher power in. And my higher power for me is God, and it's worked wonderfully well for me. Yeah. And that's where I made this, and I stayed clean for all those years. You
That's
know,
amazing. 12.
Yeah,
12 years.
That's fantastic.
and it's worked for me too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's worked for me
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if it's worked for us, maybe it might work for you. Just to put it out there. I have one little question before we wrap up the show because we are, wrapping up with time. And yeah, really quick. You touched on something, and I know that your daughter's here. And I want to invite her maybe on the next program to come and share her testimony if she would.
Yep.
You touched on the topic about it being hereditary and being
Genetic.
Genetic. So you found the source in the past.
Of my brothers that had addictions.
We call that a conduit, right? So it goes from
okay.
generation to generation. It's like a generational curse, and that has to be broken, right?
Yeah.
So it's almost like somebody's curse. There's a curse put on, so that has to be broken down by free will. Tell me about your children.
My children.
Your children.
Yes, I've got
catch this disease. Do you catch it?
I've got a son to a de facto relationship, guys, and as far as I know, he hasn't got any addiction. I've got 2 daughters to my first marriage, and one of them turned into an ice addict. Got into the ice. The husband and the wife got into the ice, and what happened there was she was hooked very badly on the ice, and anyway, this year in September the 26th, she celebrated 8 years clean off the ice, and she lives in Victoria. So I have got a daughter. The other daughter is clean. She doesn't touch anything. She's in the police force, and she's very aware of it. And then Ellie is my spiritual daughter. I met Ellie when she was in rehab, and I always said to the majors in there, when I was working there, that I said, this woman should not be in here. She's mad. She's insane. She's in detox. She was the longest client in detox at the time, but she'd sit in chapel in front of me for some unknown reason, and she'd shake her head and go like that, and I thought, she's mad. She should be in a psychiatric ward, not in a rehab. So anyway, later on I shared my testimony, and her father died from cirrhosis of the liver.
Wow.
And she said, you chose to live, Darryl. And she said, God came to me and asked me, could you become my spiritual dad? Wow. So I took Ellie on board as my spiritual daughter. So Ellie's got her addiction and things like that. So so that's where it was.
How beautiful is that? Could we maybe introduce you on the show? Maybe the audience can look forward to having you on the show very, very soon. We were hoping to fit it in today, but I just wanted to let things roll as they came. So Ali, just say hi to people at home.
Hi guys.
And Ali, you started using ice for how long were you using ice?
About 2 years.
About 2 years. Wow.
Almost 2
And
years.
I mean, I know what you're going to say, but it obviously destroyed a good part of your life being on that drug. How did you start using? Did you use alcohol? Did you use other drugs?
I was deceived. Because I had 8 years sobriety and clean time, and I was very, very happy. And I had a neighbour downstairs, and he was a good friend, and he was smoking something, and I just had a really hard day at work one day, and he said, oh, do you want a pipe? And I just thought, oh, it's just like pot, or it'll be something less, it's okay, it won't hurt me, and that was ice.
Yeah. And that's exactly the way that it starts, and that's the way that I didn't think it was any big deal, but straight away it takes a hold of you and it starts destroying your life step by step. I'm going to have to wrap up the show today. I just wanted the people at home to see you beautiful, clean, and you got an awesome dad, and that God's gifted you, and I look forward to sharing your story. So that was just a little snippet, just once. She just had a puff of something, and that was it. It started to take over and destroy her life. So it's good to see that you've adopted a new daughter.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you've helped a lot more people along the way with your recovery and your journey, and it's good to share, guys, because it's the power of the testimony that sets the captive free. So by us sharing truth in love, we do this so that you can learn from our mistakes. We do this so you can share this with somebody that that might need to hear this message. and I'm really looking forward to hearing your journey. I think we'll be able to book that in next week if you're available, and we'll be able to share with the people at home about how you got clean, how you started down the track, what happened from there, and then how you got clean and what your life looks now.
And could I also say something just as we finish?
Yeah.
Guys, it's never too late to get clean. I didn't start my journey till I was 56 years of age, so never say it's too late. The door's closed. It's never closed.
That's awesome.
It's ajar, and the rewards of clean time is unbelievable. The rewards of peace and serenity, and the promises that we get promised. So yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's awesome. That's really good. And yeah, you're worth it. Yeah.
And you're worth it. Yeah. So keep coming back.
Can I get them to come back on the show? We're going to do a not even once.
Can we jump
No,
in?
let's squish in together.
Squish
Come
in
on,
together.
we've got them book over rules.
Yeah, no one's gonna get pushed. No.
Are you ready? I'm going to teach you a not even once symbol. Are you ready?
Okay.
It goes like
And
this.
what do I do? Which one do I do?
Oh, we're going to do it all together. So
Okay.
we'll go not.
Not.
Yeah?
Not.
Not.
Right?
Even.
Even.
Once.
Once.
Not even once,
Not even
guys.
once.
Not even
Don't do
once.
it. Don't touch
Don't
it. It's
do it.
not worth it. God bless. Take care. We'll see you next week.
See you guys.
Stay safe.
Bye.
Thank you. The